By the way, I am Satoshi's representative here on Earth, in case you were wondering. Every time there's a revolution, when the cops join the revolution's over and it's finished. And you like being beaten all day long by the fiat money people, right? So, I mean, some people are masochists, and I don't judge. I don't judge. Bill Gates' wealth is entirely in fiat money, so therefore he's broke. The ability to control the narrative is being destroyed.
Welcome to the Future Is Now Digest. I'm Miguel Francis-Santiago, where we bring you the latest on everything that's happening in the current new world that we're so, unfortunately or fortunately, we don't know, are moving into. So what's on the horizon so far? What's on the mosaic that we've been able to accumulate? Again, a SARS, these are just facts. These are not conspiracies, just facts laid out on the table. So we got the SARS-CoV synthesized in a lab in 2015 at the University of Louisiana, then supposedly moved to Wuhan. Again, that's just one thing on the table. Then, of course, we have Bill Gates and Melinda and Johns Hopkins University doing an event 201 in New York in October 2019 as a part of the World Economic Forum, holding a training exercise of what will the world do if a novel coronavirus, I quote, hits us as a fast-spreading pandemic. This was 5 months ago, just FYI. Then, of course, we have the same guy that was in Contagion being the main medical professional, Mr. Sanjay Gupta, I believe his name is, now being the main medical host, TV host on CNN, covering this whole thing. Then, of course, we have the Good Club that was had its first philanthropic event held in Manhattan in 2010. That was Ted Turner, Warren Buffett, George Soros, and Bill Gates talking about the overpopulation. And this recurring theme of overpopulation has been throughout most of TEDx and public talks that Bill Gates had over the last decade, I should say. And then, of course, we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with his very interesting Twitter coming to us over the last few days, mentioning how a DTL, I believe, vaccine, after a 2017 study that studied its effects on African people, especially kids, had a 10x mortality rate versus the unvaccinated kids. And this recurring theme of vaccine, COVID-19, digital ID, another, of course, piece of facts that we have on our table is the ID2020.org program. We have Hyperledger and blockchain companies like MiPasa.org, MyPass, popping up over the last 10 days, talking about digital IDs that the world now needs to have because of this COVID-19 danger. And some speculation that we hear across the World Wide Web is that unless you have this digital ID or this digital vaccine, whatever you want to call it, you won't be able to get on a plane. So this new world that's rushing in is quite controversial, and people seem to be waking up. And to discuss this further, I'd like to introduce on today's show, streaming live from an undisclosed location, our great friend, the economist, philanthropist, talk show host, Max Keiser of the Keiser Report. Max, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Miguel. Great to see you. Great to be on your show. It's how you doing?
We're in a secret, self-isolated studio in the Caribbean, waiting this out, looking at everything that's appearing on the information webs, and are trying to piece this together. It really brings us back a long time ago, all the way to 9/11, which personally I feel very similar. What's the right word? Properties and just this same sort of problem reaction solution that we're having now in this post-COVID world, as we did during the 9/11 crisis. I wanted to ask you, what's your current take? I'm sure you're being also inspired to investigate this whole event, both economically and beyond. What's your current take on the situation? How did it come about? who's behind it, if any, and what will the future hold? Three-part question.
Well, on the pandemic front, I always look at the central banking and the pandemic and virus of fiat money. And that's the centerpiece of the global economy and any problems that are coming out of the global economy. Various health issues that appear in different countries are part and parcel of an ecological crisis that is part of the global fiat money crisis. So in the China growth rate was unsustainable, and they cut a lot of corners. And they should have been regulating these wet markets that sell these exotic foods as food. And the inevitable happened. So this is the result of unchecked, unfettered global growth, economic growth at any cost, fueled by fiat money. So it all comes back to fiat money. And unless you are willing to make that assessment and address that problem, then you're not going to be focused on the core issue.
It was an unsustainable system that we've had, and now the current system, with every Monday the Fed just having more stimulus that it wants to pump. I mean, the current system is really, I'd like to hear your opinion on what that system is or what it may be. But before we get to that, so you do believe that this is not a manufactured event, this is a natural occurrence, most likely?
I don't really focus on it because it's not the main problem. So I choose to focus my attention on what I consider to be the main issue. The pandemic issue is it's a serious issue, but it's not the primary issue of our day. It has not been really on the same scale of the central bank and fiat money issue that's been a raging problem growing for 30 or 40 years, right? And it's now becoming absolutely an uncontrollable pandemic of nonsense of fiat money. This is a huge problem, Miguel.
Well, I mean, people being grounded right now in their homes, the middle class sort of being erased as we speak, and just overall transfer of wealth, enriching the rich while again imploring the poor. That's what's happening now, obviously. And some people say that, you know, if you look at the world O-meter, which shows you the daily death and birth rates across the planet, you know, this whole COVID-19 with the current rate of, you know, 1.5 million people infected and, you know, even 100,000 deaths is really nothing. And now, because of this fast spread, supposedly the overload of the medical system, you know, the middle class just, and overall people's economies, people's pensions, all of that is just being thrown out the window. So perhaps this is like not letting a good crisis go to waste kind of a scenario. Could that be it, you know?
That's been the story. That's been the story for 45 years. Since 1971, the world's been on a pure fiat money standard. There's no currency in the world that's backed by anything other than more paper. And that was the first time in history the world has ever tried that experiment of having the world run on paper money without any currency anywhere having any backing whatsoever. And the result is catastrophic. And it's only going to get worse until we change the money. So either the money starts to get backed by something like gold, or the world starts to adopt Bitcoin. And if people are sick and tired of what's going on, they can opt out of the system by buying Bitcoin, embracing Bitcoin, and living the Bitcoin life. If you're sick and tired of all this, of all these catastrophes, you can opt out. The first time in history, people have been able to opt out with something like Bitcoin. So there's that. If you're not opting out and choosing the Bitcoin life, then it's because you're a masochist and you like being beaten all day long by the fiat money people, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
some people are masochists, and I don't judge. I don't judge. I mean, people have fetishes, and that's who they are, and they have a sadomasochistic fetish. Okay, I mean, I'm not here to judge. But if you want to get out, if you want to opt out, and you want to live a wholesome, pure, God-fearing existence in the presence of Satoshi Nakamoto, then you can. You opt out. You go down the Bitcoin path. You adopt the Bitcoin.
How do you think right now, as the halving is approaching, the Bitcoin community and the Bitcoin price what can we expect, especially now that the halving is almost like being fueled by the current fiat money crumbling system around the world?
Right. Well, Bitcoin, I always say you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. So I think that when Bitcoin appeared on the scene in 2009, it attracted the attention of a lot of people. And over the course of 10, 11 years, the people that have started to think about it and look at it are higher up in the global hierarchy of banks and politicians. And the protocol has gone to work on their conscious mind, their subconscious mind, their unconscious minds, and it's transforming people. So the question is the current crisis caused by Bitcoin, or is Bitcoin the cure for the current crisis? I think there's a little bit of both. I think that a lot of people in major seats of power around the world, once they were exposed to the Bitcoin protocol, their unconscious minds were transformed irreparably, unchangeably, immutably, and they're doing things now that they would have never done had Bitcoin not existed. So we're living in a Bitcoin world now. This is the Bitcoin world. This is the year 11 after the birth of our Lord and Savior, Satoshi Nakamoto, in 2011. By the way, I am Satoshi's representative here on Earth, in case you were wondering. And that's the story. So it's no longer BC or AD, it's AS, after Satoshi. This is the year 11 AS. That's the year we're in. So deal with it. Either go with it or get crushed by it.
We have this class action lawsuit coming out of New York, against Binance, BitMEX, all the major sort of crypto power players that have been driving Bitcoin's, adoption and price in some regard. It's a weird time for the powers that be attacking this community. And again, if I take your attention back to ID 2020, which is, Gavi and Bill and Melinda Gates and John Hopkins and Microsoft and IBM supported initiative of basically creating a digital identity for the Western world and beyond. It's currently being supported by Hyperledger, and this project called mipasa.org. You can take a look, on the blockchain. And it seems that a lot of these blockchainers, unlike the Bitcoin Maximalists, of course, are now ready to sell their soul to the establishment in adapting this technology. Microsoft just invested huge sums of money into creating their own blockchain. So it all comes at a time of this sort of technocratical control that seems to be looming in on the Western world, really coming from China's sort of already established control book. What do you think about that?
As far as the Gates and IBM and those people doing projects, they're all based on fiat money. They're all going to go bankrupt. Bill Gates' his wealth is entirely in fiat money. So therefore, he's broke. He's penniless. He has no Bitcoin. He's broke. IBM has no wealth. It's based entirely on dollars and fiat money. They have no money. They're broke. They're going to be completely washed out to sea. Now, blockchainers, who cares? Blockchain is not Bitcoin. Blockchain is a spreadsheet, and who cares about a spreadsheet? It's the centralized piece of garbage. It has no relevance to Bitcoin. So my answer is, who cares? They are simply blowing themselves up. They are taking themselves out of the game. They're committing Fiaticide. They're martyrs for fiat money. So let them be martyrs for fiat money. There's just less people around to bother us in the Bitcoin community. So I don't care. They're stupid.
And the second part of the question would be, do you feel that the establishment is now trying to attack the Bitcoiners and trying to attack...
Yes, Miguel, let me answer. Okay,
yes.
That's the question. Is the establishment trying to attack Bitcoiners? Yes, they are. And that's the way the protocol is designed. It's designed to attract the biggest possible attacks possible from the biggest entities possible, to make the hash rate go up, to make the chain more secure, to make Bitcoin more secure, to make it even more desirable as hard money, which then drives the price higher to 100,000, 400,000, a million a coin. So we want the biggest attacks possible. We want every single government to organize themselves and try to attack Bitcoin. That's what we want, because that's drives the price to 1 million. And those people who have Bitcoin are now in charge of everything. Those people who got stuck in fiat are destroyed. It's working perfectly. The protocol is the second coming of perfection. I think that the class action lawsuit is going to go nowhere because all the regulators and all the policemen and all the king's horsemen take fiat money, and fiat money is going down. A lot of the regulators are going to switch over to Bitcoin. I spend a lot of my time trying to get regulators and police people onto Bitcoin so that when the revolution is fully in play, they'll know what side to be on. They won't be on the side of fiat money. Every time there's a revolution, when the cops join the revolution's over and it's finished and it's completed. And that's what's happening in Bitcoin. There are not enough regulators out there. The only way it would work is if every single regulator in the world is so stupid that they would allow themselves to commit Fiaticide and not own any Bitcoin, which is not going to happen. There's always going to be at least one smart regulator out there who realizes, hey, it's really stupid for me to die on the cross of Bitcoin, of fiat money, when I can be a Bitcoiner and be part of the reality, the truth. So that we don't care. It's too far gone. They messed up. They're over. Forget about them. Like if you have a pet goldfish and it dies, it doesn't make sense to mourn your dead pet goldfish for more than a day or two. We can't mourn the fiat system collapse. We can't mourn the death of all of these entrenched oligopolists. We can't mourn the passing of JP Morgan. We can't mourn them forever. We have to move on.
So you really think this is it? This whole event it marks the end of the fiat system? And in what way do you see the Bitcoin adoption picking up because of this? How will people adapt more Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, the fiat money died in 2008. And it's been kept animated with injections of fiat formaldehyde. It's like Weekend at Bernie's. Remember that movie where they have their dead friend and they just pose him in pictures and they walk around and he's dead, but they still, have fun with him. It's the same thing with the global banking system. It died in 2008. It did. It's dead. But it's been kept animated with injections of hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of formaldehyde called fiat money. So it's already dead. You can't die twice, Miguel. I mean, that sounds like a good name for a James Bond movie, but nevertheless, you cannot die twice. And the global economy already died in 2008. So adoption for Bitcoin is growing every day, and it'll grow as it grows. It's like Noah's Ark. If you get on the Ark, you're going to be great. If you're left not, if you want to fool around and not save yourself, then that's okay too. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Do you want to be part of the future, or do you want to join? Stick with the past. It's up to, and everyone has to make their own individual choice.
That's exactly right. I concur with you. But it seems, again, the establishment is using this to say that fiat money is dirty. It's all COVID-19 infected. You got to not touch it. Nancy Pelosi's toying around with the digital dollar in the Congress.
Right, because they have Bitcoin derangement syndrome. Bitcoin went to work on Nancy Pelosi and turned her mind to mush. Bitcoin went to work on Joe Biden, and he's a blabbering idiot. Why do you think Joe Biden can't even put two sentences together without people concerned whether he should be rushed to the hospital? Because of Bitcoin. Bitcoin destroyed his mind. It destroyed anyone who thinks that they have any power in the world compared to Bitcoin. They're not blathering idiots. And that's the way it is. It's like that, it's like many things that attack the mind in ways that render it inoperable. And we have a lot of people now who still have positions of power, who are obviously suffering grave mental illnesses, but that's perfectly by design. That's the way it was designed, Miguel. Don't worry about it. If you're a president or you're prime minister or you're a king or you're a queen, it starts to just blabber on like a freaking idiot without any sense whatsoever. It means the protocol is working.
It's happening. The Bank of France right now, the Central Bank of France, has a petition on their website which until May 20th, 2020 is accepting applications to build out, the Euro token or the Euro franc blockchain, their digital currency. So it seems like all the central, Western powers right now are allocating this idea that, hey, we got to make our own Bitcoin, hoping that.
Right. It's like France is fighting a rear guard action. They're too late to the party. They, too little, too late. You remember the famous battle where the English showed up and they had the longbow, and they killed the French army within minutes. And then they came up with that phrase where they hold up two fingers to mean it's very, it's a very insulting gesture to make. And it all goes back to the fact that our two fingers on our longbow is all it took to destroy you. So with France, the Bank of France, all it takes is the lines of the Bitcoin protocol code to put them out of business. They're irrelevant. They're just not relevant anymore. I don't know. I don't mourn the death of the Bank of France. They're free to save themselves if they want, but I'm not going to force anybody at the Bank of France to save themselves. If they want to go down with their legacy systems, so be it, man. Do it. Live stream it. Give us some entertainment while you're committing Fiaticide.
I love it. So really, the world right now, and again, the blockchain community too, in many ways, thinks that's it. The economy is over. The conferences are over. For many people, their businesses are closed. They can't go to work. But you see this as a positive change for Bitcoin and for our Satoshi-lution that's happening right now. Is that right?
I wouldn't characterize it as being either positive or negative. It just is what it is. This is the evolution of money. So there has been a quest for hundreds of thousands of years, the entire history of Homo sapien, to find the perfect trading mechanism, medium. The perfect trading medium has been our goal since we were just first given consciousness and moved away from our primate branch of the animal kingdom. And in 2009, we discovered it. We became whole. When 2009, humanity became whole, it became part of the cosmic consciousness. We joined forces with our higher selves.
How do you see this whole event right now, this COVID-19, the financial transformation play out? How do you see this world in 1 or 2 years?
Well, unquestionably, the COVID-19 pandemic is forcing big change. So in the media space, I think I'm very interested to see how big media, is being gutted by this. So the budgets for the biggest media companies in the world, Disney, Channel 4 in the UK, ABC, NBC, CBS, all over the world, budgets are being slashed, production's being slashed, Hollywood movies are not being produced, Hollywood TV shows are not being produced. And so the ability to control the narrative is being destroyed because, particularly in America, we went through 3 years of MSNBC, which is a division of NBC, which is a division of Comcast, which is a defense contractor and warmonger, was spewing this atrocious, toxic propaganda got the name eventually as Russiagate, the Russiagate hoax. And they do that with enormous resources. They have this perky host, Rachel Maddow, who has a style of very familiarity to speak directly to her folks there on the other end of the TV tube, and she gets them real comfortable with the idea that there's an existential threat coming from abroad, from the Slavs. The Slavics are less than human. The Slavs are coming, and we need to destroy the Slavs. And it's all very, propagandized. And that takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of resources. So COVID-19 wiped that out. So now you've got people like Stephen Colbert in his basement without any writers, trying to tell jokes. And it's apparent that this guy is not that funny. He's not that talented. And he will probably disappear within 24 months because it was obvious that this was a puffed up hoax of an entertainer to begin with. So all the media space is being completely transformed. RT, we do our show, it's on RT. And they're having their best year ever, I think, because they saw this coming years ago. The management of RT is very insightful. They have people in their new media department like Ivor Crody, who's a genius when it comes to new media. And, it's just not surprising. I'll say that. I'm not surprised because it was overdue for a correction. big media was bloated. It's a huge bubble, and the bubbles popped. And so the media space is different. The narrative, therefore, is not controlled by the defense contractors and the warmongers. The narrative is now open. It's more of an open dialogue. We have more of a discussion, more ideas are being discussed. We have more freedom to assemble and discuss these ideas. And so I think that's interesting, a development as a result of the
But the
pandemic.
mainstream media still seems to be on the fear-mongering path, where right now, with COVID-19, the whole objective is just
they don't know, but they're not believable, because instead of being in a $30-40 million studio with a crew of 100 cameramen and soundmen and makeup and hair, and force feeding that propaganda through the magic of Hollywood media, tricks. When they're telling the same lies from their basement, when the lighting is terrible, the makeup is terrible, nobody believes them anymore. But they shouldn't have believed them to begin with. But now they definitely don't believe them. They'll continue for a while to spew the same propaganda, but it's really hard to be convincing when your dog's running through the shot, you have an open cold sore on your lip, you have no writers, and the actual words coming out of your mouth are ill written, ill shaped, ill formed. You sound like an idiot. They should never have believed them.
But right now they propagate fear. I mean, CNN still looks good as far as the studio, but all they do 24/7 is now just propagate fear of the COVID-19. I think to lower people's vibrations, to lower people's frequencies, to get them more susceptible to this virus, really. Because when you're in panic, when you're in constant stress, when you're constantly being bombarded that this is going to kill you, you're going to tell your immune system to shut down, whether you like it or not, psychosomatically. So,
look, Miguel, the cure for fear is satire, right? I mean, throughout history, throughout literature, we have many instances where some false king or some power-hungry warlord is defeated by the kid in the crowd that says, "Hey, the king has no clothes." It's just like mocking the fake power elite is the best way to overcome your fear. If you're afraid of anything that comes across CNN, remember that Wolf Blitzer is a closet drag queen who goes home and writes in coloring books pictures of demented angels flying around the head of cutouts of Julia Child, who's in a kitchen ruining a souffle, right? I mean, it's just like these people are mirages of pantomime, of old
jokes. They're sociopaths.
Right? They're not. I mean, do you get afraid when you go to a scary movie? I mean, if you go to a scary movie, do you go home and decide you're going to spend the rest of your life in fear? Are you afraid of shadows? Are you afraid of the boogeyman? Are you afraid of CNN? Are you afraid of Wolf Blitzer? Are you afraid of the big bad wolf? Right? The storytelling is pretty simple, right? You set up the evil guy, the Wolf Blitzer. His name is comically stupid. Wolf Blitzer. He's the big bad wolf of CNN. And then there's Little Red Riding Hood, and then there's the Three Little Pigs. And it's all fairy tales. It's all children's fairy tales. And there's nothing to be afraid of. If you have
it's a mirage of propaganda. It's a mirage of gullible propaganda.
Know yourself. As Socrates said 2,700 years ago. Know yourself. That's your full-time job from sun up to sun down. Just know yourself, and you will be set free from these fake fear-mongering jerks.
Max, how are you coping right now with COVID-19? Where are you? What's happening in your area? How is this whole thing playing out to you? Like a movie script? Or you're actually seeing, ambulances hauling people up and down the street?
We're having a great time. Our show has never been more popular. It's dubbed into Spanish. It gets hundreds of thousands of views on the dubbed Spanish version. Our English version is hitting new all-time records in view numbers. The content's great. We get the satisfaction of saying, hey, we were right for 10 years. Everyone else was wrong. So, we saw it coming. We predicted it. We prepared people for it. People who have a lot of Bitcoin, gold, and silver right now, and we're, aware that mainstream media is not to be given much credibility, are fully prepared. They're using this as an opportunity to do stuff that maybe they couldn't have done before. So this is it's fine. It's great.
And as far as like your area, as far as like the actual virus, the actual impact of people dying, etc. Are you seeing this? Is this could you reveal some of that?
The most immediate area for us that has hospitals would be Raleigh in North Carolina, and at the moment they are not suffering catastrophic consequences as a result. We have cases of the virus, and people are dealing with it, but there is a lot of social distancing and best practices are being used, and it's not like a city where the health system gets completely overrun. And then that's the issue then, because
Right.
you have essentially triage. So doctors have to start picking who lives and who dies. And
Right.
people with serious problems, like maybe they need cancer remedies, et cetera, are marginalized. They're put on a waiting list and things like that. So the system is not ready to handle the amount of illness in many, many places. We don't have that here, but you do see it even in New York. I think they are now tapering down a bit. They don't have quite the shortage of hospital beds that they were maybe thinking about as early as last week.
Max,
So,
and do you think the lockdown is the right way to go? Putting people on a house arrest.
Well, you have to stop the spread of the virus. So that only leaves you one choice.
Question about Bill Gates and vaccines. How do you view this whole commotion about Gates using this to vaccinize the world for purposes of control or depopulation? What's your theory on this?
Well, again, I focus on the banks, fiat money, central banking, and that's the root of all these problems. And it's how Bill Gates became a billionaire, was getting free money from the Fed. So before Bill Gates became a billionaire, and then now Bill Gates is doing stuff that people are questioning, I asked, how did Bill Gates become a billionaire? He was a twice convicted predatory monopolist. How did he get to where he is today, so that he's making all these moves as he is? It's because he gets free money from the Fed, because money has no intrinsic value. It's just who's a friend of the king that gets the central banking king gets the money. That's the question I'm asking. Whether what he's doing now, it's too late to ask what he's doing now. The question is, how do we prevent the next Bill Gates? How do we, if you put him in a category of a malevolent actor, okay, how do we prevent the next Bill Gates? How do we prevent the next class of psychotic billionaires? How do we stop that from happening? And that's more what I'm interested in.
All right, and well, the answer is clear. That's Bitcoin, and that's monetary sovereignty for all the people of the planet. Would you agree?
Individual sovereignty is the way to go. So everyone, it can never be possible. It's been a desire of humans since we first became humans, and it's never been possible until 2009. So this is our whole experience on Earth was finally figured out in 2009.
Max,
hundreds of thousands of years.
And Max, could this whole thing, you think, escalate to something more heated, like a war, a world war, or something of sorts, as many countries are right now basically thrown under the bus?
There will be some kind of global conflict, but we don't know what shape that's going to take. World War I, started on horseback and it ended with flying airplanes. World War II started with flying airplanes and it ended with atomic weapons. World War III, it'll start with the threat of atomic weapons, but I think the way it ends will be something very different that no one can even imagine at the time. I think the way it'll take shape is more along the lines of it'll be Bitcoin versus the world. So that'll be World War III. And if you can already be on the winning team right now by buying Bitcoin, and then you've won World War III. Or you can wait and try to fight it out and lose World War III. Or you can win World War III. It's up to you, Miguel. I know you've already bought some Bitcoin, so you're going to be winning World War III. And it didn't take long to win that war. Gosh, that was easy.
And last thing for the people, just your wish to the people.
No, not last thing, Miguel. You do this all the time, Miguel. You say, "Oh, one more."
No, literally
and then I'm
the
here
last
for like an hour and a half,
No.
and we drag it out, and Okay, I'm gonna give you 20 seconds, and then I'm turning the machine off. The
All right,
camera
sounds
goes
good.
off in 20 seconds, Miguel.
Just
No
your
more of your
wish to the
tricks.
people.
I don't want any more of your journalistic tricks, Miguel.
Got it. Just your wish to the people, your best words of wisdom to the people out there right now.
My best words of wisdom to the people out there right now is this: you don't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes you.
All right. Max Keiser, thank you so much, sir, okay?
I'm leaving now, Miguel.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Yes.
I know
I'll
he's
see you
just
next
setting me
time.
up for another question. I'm cutting
No.
the machine off.
That's it. Stay safe. Best of luck to everything that you do right now. It's a great time for you and Stacy to continue enlightening the world. Thank you for all you do. And well, hopefully I'll see you next time once we can shake hands again.
Okay, that sounds good. Bye.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Stay tuned to The Future Is Now. I'm Miguel Francis, and remember, the future is what you make of it.